Hello readers by eyes and by ears, this is Mari Chan and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are finishing The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish Volume 2, also known as 残疾暴君的掌心鱼宠 by Xue Shan Fei Hu. That would be chapters 74 through 76. So I hope you all enjoy, because after we finish this, we will literally be halfway through the series. So yay! Enjoy! Chapter 74. Fishy Celebration. In order to achieve the best effect, Liu used only red carp in his arrangement. That was his only requirement, other than not allowing anyone to watch while he trained the fish. Prince Sing let him do whatever he wanted. The fish that were purchased weren't as precious as the koi in the palace, but they did look celebratory and jubilant. It wasn't enough to just practice. Liu had asked Prince Sing to write down the word longevity as reference. Originally, the prince didn't expect much. He was just trying to make Xiaoyu happy. But seeing how meticulous the arrangement was, exactly the same as his own handwriting, Prince Sing was both shocked and deeply moved. Xiaoyu was the only person in the world who could achieve this. After that, in order to practice, the little fish didn't sleep or eat. Prince Sing thought his fish had lost a lot of weight, and he prepared plenty of food. He'd also fed human Xiaoyu lots of nutritious foods, but Liu would only eat a little bit each time. Unfortunately, Liu had to join in on the performance, so he couldn't look too different from the rest of the fish. In the past, Liu had never paid much attention, but now that he was with the other fish, he realized what a celebratory fish should look like. But even though Liu didn't eat much, he really wanted to. All the food Prince Sing fed him was too delicious. Maybe he could wait until after the emperor's birthday to make up for it. While Liu was practicing his fish arrangement, the spy Prince Sing sent to keep an eye on the Sixth Prince came back to report that the Sixth Prince had bought some paper lanterns. Liu immediately understood what that meant. It was just as he expected. When it came to these plot points that didn't affect much of what came before or after, the Sixth Prince really did follow the original plot. He was indeed preparing a light show. But if they were keeping an eye on the Sixth Prince, was the Sixth Prince keeping an eye on them too? Liu remembered the Sixth Prince's icy cold gaze and couldn't help the shiver creeping up his spine. He decided he had to be careful. He couldn't underestimate that person no matter what. Considering the fish arrangement might not go according to plan, Liu had made contingency plans. The emperor's birthday arrived in no time at all. Prince Sing had to go to the palace early in the morning. Liu was afraid that if he transformed into a human now, something might happen later and he wouldn't be able to transform again. So, the day before, he'd told Prince Sing that Li Gongzi was asking for the day off. Prince Sing would take the crystal bottle and Xiaoyu into the palace first, and Wang Xi and the guards would bring the rest of the fish afterward. In order to avoid suspicion, all the fish were in fish tanks covered in cloth. They would just tell anyone who asked that they were gifts for the emperor. The emperor was holding his birthday banquet in Vol.2 Palace and would be receiving birthday wishes from all of his court officials. Gifts from various states and countries had already started coming in a month earlier, and there were plenty of common people who traveled to the capital to celebrate and witness the festivities. As a result, the emperor had colorful tents set up all over for the occasion. Liu was there with Prince Sing for the celebration at Vol.2 Palace, and the whole thing really opened his eyes. If he had to choose one word to describe it, it would be lavish. There were so many gifts from court officials and other members of the aristocracy that the rooms in Vol.2 Palace weren't enough to hold them all. The gifts were all priceless. Any random piece could be a family heirloom. The emperor was very happy. He had a few drinks with some of the officials and each of the 6 ministers, and then it was time for the princes to present their gifts. They lined up according to age, which meant the first at the very front was the Marquis of An, the second prince. The emperor had allowed him into the palace to celebrate on such a special day, but Mu Tianzhao still wasn't in his right mind. He didn't manage to recognize the emperor when he saw him, and when the emperor saw the Marquis of An and thought back to the personable second prince of the past, he couldn't help but feel melancholy. Very quickly, though, this feeling was washed away by the other princes. The third prince, Mu Tianming, had also been allowed to enter the palace. The emperor nodded as he saw how much humbler the third prince was now. The third prince brought forth the gift he'd carefully selected, a saraira he'd purchased for a fortune. The emperor was touched at the third prince's filial piety, but such relics were found in places of worship. Buddha probably wasn't pleased at the trouble he'd gone to. But because it was a celebration, the emperor didn't let his dissatisfaction show on his face. However, he did think about it a bit more deeply. The third prince was still on house arrest. All he could do was study and copy books. How did he get his hands on such a precious thing? But he decided to leave that question for later. The third prince insisted that he was now regretful of his mistakes, but the emperor wanted to check the third prince thoroughly. From inside his bottle, Li Yu saw the third prince present a relic. It was pitch black, and he couldn't quite tell what shape it was. Regardless of whether or not the third prince managed to get the real thing, most saraira were made when monks were cremated. Li Yu instinctively feared such things. Feeling Li Yu's nervousness, Prince Ting covered him up with his sleeve. Li Yu felt a lot safer peeking out from behind the fabric. The two princes, the 7th and 8th princes, had each copied sutras for the emperor and came to kowtow to the emperor with their mothers. The emperor liked seeing his young sons' faces. It made him feel like he was still young, not yet old. When it was the 6th prince's turn, Mu Tianxiao first had his head lowered, asking for forgiveness. He said he was poor, unable to prepare a proper gift. All he could do was prepare a light show for the emperor. The way he said it provoked intrigue and sympathy. The emperor was also curious what exactly the 6th prince was planning and asked him to do his best. Li Yu screamed mentally, "It's here! It's here!" He immediately swam to the edge of his crystal bottle. Following the 6th prince's request, half of the candles in Vol.2 Palace were extinguished. Then, 6 lanterns that the 6th prince had brought were hung up. The emperor looked up at them and thought the lights were quite ordinary, but the 6th prince asked him to look at the floor. On the gold bricks of Vol.2 Palace, many vague shadows appeared. With closer examination, each shadow read longevity. The emperor was shocked. "Tianxiao, how did you do this?" Mu Tianxiao smiled and explained it to the emperor in detail. After the 6th prince had purchased the lanterns, he'd stuck many cutouts of the word longevity on the inside. When the lanterns were lit and hung up high, the words inside would be projected onto the ground. Mu Tianxiao said humbly, "It's but a simple trick, not anything impressive." The emperor clapped delightedly. "I know it wasn't easy. It's the thought that counts." When the 6th prince was presenting his gift, the 3rd prince was right on the side. Mu Tianming originally had a lot of confidence in his relic, hoping it would allow him to make a comeback. But he saw the difference in how the emperor treated him and the 6th prince. So, to the emperor, the relic he'd spent a fortune on was nothing compared to a few lanterns. The 3rd prince was incredibly frustrated and also confused. Wasn't the 6th prince always helping him out? Why did he try to steal the show during such an important occasion, the emperor's birthday? The 3rd prince turned his confusion to the 6th prince. The 6th prince said quietly, "Third brother, don't be angry. You're still on house arrest now. I was thinking that if I can get a word in front of our royal father, I could help you out of your situation." The 3rd prince froze. That seemed to make sense. But was that really how it was? After the 6th prince left, head eunuch Luo came to whisper to the emperor. Prince Ting's Wang Gonggong had asked him to announce Prince Ting's gift last. It was a very small thing for Luo Zhuisheng, but Prince Ting would owe him a favor in the future. Why not? So, after the emperor praised the 6th prince's gift over and over, Luo Zhuisheng found the opportunity to bring up Prince Ting. The emperor smiled, then glanced at Prince Ting, a little surprised. "Tianchi, I heard you prepared a unique gift this time?" Prince Ting usually gave him his own calligraphy. If even he had prepared a surprise, that would be truly unusual. Prince Ting walked out of the line-up and presented his own calligraphy and a painting scroll. When the emperor saw the prince's calligraphy, he smiled. Doing something every single year was a kind of perseverance, Then, as he unrolled the scroll, the emperor's expression was full of delight. "You managed to get your hands on a painting from Tang Yin for my birthday?" Tang Yin was the name of the painter. Many people praised him as the painting immortal, and the emperor really enjoyed his works too, wanting to bring him into the palace. But Tang Yin was a little strange. He didn't like money or power and rarely painted for anyone else. How unexpected that he made an exception for the emperor's birthday. The sixth prince spoke of his hardships, but Prince Jing said nothing of how he'd persuaded Tang Yin to paint this for him. He only brought the painting out. But as soon as the emperor saw it, he knew how much effort Prince Jing had put in. After the emperor finished examining the crane and peach painting, he asked Luo Ruisheng to hang it up in Qianqing Palace, satisfied. He wanted to see this painting every day. In comparison, the sixth prince's lighting projection was a lot cruder. The emperor no longer paid the shadows any mind. After Prince Jing had presented the painting, he stood there unmoving. The emperor said, curious, "Do you have something else?" Prince Jing nodded lightly and gestured for the emperor to follow him. The emperor was quite happy and was willing to do as Prince Jing said. He followed Prince Jing, and they arrived at Tai Ye Pool. Luo Ruisheng held the emperor's arm, and they looked into the pool together, only to see patches of red jumping here and there. There were many red carp swimming within. The carp were constantly moving and seemed to be increasing in number. They lingered before the emperor, not leaving. Luo Ruisheng understood that this was why Prince Jing asked the emperor to come. He chuckled, "Your Majesty, look, the fish are congratulating you." Pleased, the emperor nodded. The sixth prince followed behind the emperor. The smile remained on his face, but he felt disdain on the inside. What was this? All he had to do was toss some fish feed in before the emperor came. Of course the fish would all gather. This couldn't even be considered a trick. How was it comparable to his lanterns? The emperor looked at the fish in the pool, then suddenly realized the fish seemed to be in formation. Some were horizontal, some were vertical. They looked like strokes of a brush. Luo Ruisheng saw it too and exclaimed in a low voice, "Do these fish form a word?" The emperor took a step back so he could see all the carp at once. Connecting the patches of red, they formed a spectacular proper word. Longevity. The precise longevity that Prince Jing had written many times throughout the years. Luo Ruisheng was stunned, nearly to tears. "Your Highness, the carp are celebrating your birthday." First, the emperor had received Tang Yin's crane and peach painting. Now he had the red carp longevity. He couldn't be more pleased. Luo Ruisheng spewed out a bunch of auspicious congratulatory messages, and after all that, the red carp were still in formation. No one had ever seen such a thing. Everyone rushed forward to look. The emperor liked Prince Jing's gift the best. He showered the prince with praise, but never asked how he did it. There was no need to reveal the secret behind such a beautiful scene. The emperor would just pretend it was a miracle. Mu Tianming stared at all of this in fury. Seeing Mu Tianxiao, he said passive-aggressively, "I might not be as smart as you, but you can't even compare to a mute." But the sixth prince just smiled. "Fifth brother's gift is truly extraordinary. I really cannot compete." Mu Tianming saw that either way, his gift couldn't come close to the others, so he left in a hurry. Mu Tianxiao kept smiling. No one would be able to criticize him. The emperor admired the red carp for a long time. They were somehow still holding their formation. The sixth prince suddenly thought of something. Prince Jing must have done something to the water to make the carps spell out longevity, but he didn't know how Prince Jing did it. If he could ruin the formation, Prince Jing wouldn't feel so smug anymore. Very quickly, he thought of a plan and asked a servant nearby, "Is there fish feed? I've never seen a sight like this before. I want to reward these fish." The sixth prince wasn't stupid. He wouldn't poison these fish in front of the emperor. He just wanted to feed them. There must be a reason these fish spelled out longevity, but fish were fish. How smart could they be? If he threw down a handful of feed, the fish would start fighting. When faced with such a sight, most people would want to feed them. The sixth prince's actions weren't suspicious. Even the emperor heard. "That's right, I want to reward them too." In an instant, Prince Jing's heart flew into his throat. But remembering how Xiao Yu had promised him, he couldn't ruin Xiao Yu's plan, so Prince Ting forced himself to calm down, staring at the fish. The sixth prince smiled smugly. He took the fish feed from the servant and threw a huge handful down. The carps really did rush toward the food. The huge longevity dissipated in an instant. The emperor suddenly realized something and felt a little disappointed. But just as the red carp were dispersing, he saw a silver koi speckled with gold swim up closely from below. The koi was holding a lotus flower in its mouth, its gold fins illuminating the azure waves of Tyrant pool. It swam to the emperor and spun in an elegant circle. The emperor had never experienced so many surprises in a row. He quickly recognized his son's pet fish. Tianchi, this is your fish. Prince Ting nodded, giving the fish in the water, who was trying to do a seaweed dance, a doting glance. The sixth prince had played a dirty trick, but Xiao Yu had something up his sleeve. He was prepared. Prince Ting was so proud of his love. Chapter 75. Through Thick and Thin. The emperor was very happy with Prince Ting. At the banquet, he thought a lot and often looked toward Prince Ting. After the banquet, the emperor summoned Prince Ting to speak to him alone. Li Yu had just returned from Tai Ye Pool to the crystal bottle. He didn't have time to come along, so he had to wait outside Qianting Palace with Wang Xi. While they waited, Wang Xi brought out lots of red fish food and peach blossom pastries to feed him. Prince Ting's gift had never been so successful, and Wang Gonggong thought it was all thanks to Master Fish. It really needed to be appreciated for its hard work. Just now, when the sixth prince had thrown the fish feed into the water, Li Yu hadn't bitten a single bite. The proud fish didn't even glance at the food, only focusing on swimming in front of the emperor, not tiring at all. With Wang Gonggong feeding him now, however, Li Yu could finally feel his hunger. He hurriedly started gobbling it down until both cheeks were stuffed. Master Fish, eat slowly. Wang Xi chuckled. Li Yu was still busy eating when he suddenly heard footsteps. Delighted, Li Yu turned to look with a piece of food still in his mouth, then realized the footsteps were coming from outside, so it must not be Prince Ting. Soon, Li Yu saw Mu Tianxiao's gentle, amiable face. The sixth prince? Li Yu was a little disappointed. Why hadn't he left yet? Probably because he was waiting for the emperor to summon him. I bet he wasn't expecting to see Wang Xi here with the fish. Mu Tianxiao saw the fish too. The sixth prince examined the fish for a long time and was about to take a step forward. Your Highness, sixth prince, please stop. Wang Xi called out with his brows knit together. I can't take a look at my fifth brother's fish? The sixth prince seemed to smile. What did he want? Li Yu was so nervous, he forgot to eat his food. He sneakily gathered all his strength into his tail. If the sixth prince tried anything, he'd slap him. Sixth prince. Wang Xi held the crystal bottle protectively in his arms. This is His Highness's fish. Without his permission, no one is allowed to approach. Mu Tianxiao's expression went cold. You dare to look down on me too? This servant is not looking down on your highness, said Wang Xi, neither too self-depreciating nor too arrogant. Although I'm just a servant, I know taking without asking is stealing. Why does your highness have to come look at the fish while our prince is gone? Li Yu would have clapped for Wang Xi if his fins could reach. Sob, sob, sob. Wang Gonggong was standing up to the sixth prince for him. How touching. Wang Xi refused to give in, putting Mu Tianxiao in an awkward position. Realizing that getting into a fight with Prince Ting's most trusted servant in front of Qianting Palace would be a bad look, Mu Tianxiao quickly smoothed out his expression and said, There's no need to be so nervous. I just wanted to take a look. If that's not okay, then never mind. Mu Tianxiao had walked into the palace without asking, and very quickly he was politely asked to leave by the servants inside. He glared at Wang Xi and left. It looked like the sixth prince was unable to ask for an audience with the emperor. The emperor didn't want to see him. Now that he was finally gone, Li Yu relaxed a little. At last, Luo Zheisheng walked Prince Ting out. Wang Xi hurried to greet him with Li Yu. Your Highness, you're finally done. Wang Xi handed the crystal bottle over, smiling. Wang Xi always wanted to see the fish first. It had become a habit. Prince Ting accepted the crystal bottle and smoothed the hand over the fish's smooth back. Li Yu rubbed up against him happily. The emperor had spoken to Prince Ting for ages. It would be great if the emperor had been so pleased that he made Prince Ting the crown prince right then and there. Garbage like the third prince and sixth prince could all stand to the side. Li Yu nearly laughed at himself. How could it be so easy? He knew he was only dreaming, but he wanted to think about it just for fun. But even if he wasn't made crown prince, he should at least be rewarded, right? Li Yu snuck a glance at Prince Ting's expression. He didn't look happy or sad. It seemed like the reward this time was different. Prince Ting glanced at Wang Xi. Go to Changchun Palace. Wang Xi made a noise in response and led the way. This was the first time Li Yu had gone to Changchun Palace. It made him think of a certain mysterious secret related to the place. He'd once tried to ask Prince Ting, but it had become clear that Prince Ting had no such memory. If he wanted to figure out the secret, he'd have to do it himself. Li Yu had wanted to ask Prince Ting if he could take him to Changchun Palace before, but he was never able to find a good excuse. After all, Changchun Palace was where the empress had lived. It would be rude if he randomly asked to go see it. Besides, if he wanted to come in human form, he'd have to pay attention to the time. If Prince Ting agreed to take him and then he disappeared, there was no possible way to explain that. But if he was a fish, he couldn't ask Prince Ting to take him anywhere. Li Yu had been planning on waiting until Empress Xiaohui's birthday. The original story mentioned that Prince Ting would go to Changchun Palace every year on that day. Prince Ting usually brought the fish around with him everywhere. If he didn't, the fish just wouldn't leave him alone. He'd get to Changchun Palace somehow. Then, while he was there, he would figure out the secret. Unexpectedly, before the Empress's birthday, on the Emperor's birthday, Prince Ting was going for some reason. He'd just met with the Emperor. Was it because the Emperor ordered him to? Li Yu observed Prince Ting's expression carefully. Prince Ting should have been rewarded, so why was his expression so solemn? Soon, they arrived at Changchun Palace. As soon as Li Yu saw the landscaping around the palace, he grew more and more sure that the secret had happened here. The decorations on the eaves were very similar to the ones he saw in the system, and Wang Xi was muttering that after the Empress's death, no other concubine had lived here, and that it had been a long time since it was fixed up. Changchun Palace was engulfed in darkness. Wang Xi ordered someone to light the candles. There were funeral clothes hanging all over the place, and Empress Xiaohui's memorial tablet rested on the table. Prince Ting put the crystal bottle on a side table. Wang Xi took out 3 sticks of incense, and Prince Ting lit them himself. Then he approached the tablet and kowtowed 3 times. Li Yu entered the palace with Prince Ting. He looked around everywhere for the tiger plush, but he didn't see it. Because he couldn't do anything as a fish, he had no choice but to give up. He watched as Prince Ting paid respects to Empress Xiaohui and couldn't help but think back to the family that Prince Ting had taken him to see in Chang'an Manor. Now he'd brought Li Yu to Changchun Palace. Empress Xiaohui was Prince Ting's mother. Realizing, Li Yu hurriedly bobbed his fish body, following along with Prince Ting's movements. Because this was all so sudden, Li Yu wasn't prepared. All he could do was silently say, "Your Majesty, if you can hear me, please protect Prince Ting." From the corner of his eye, Prince Ting caught sight of Li Yu bobbing his head and tail. He immediately understood Li Yu's intentions and smiled, at peace. After the fish was done bowing, Prince Ting sat down to touch the fish. Li Yu could feel Prince Ting's heavy heart even through the bottle. What was it? Was he not rewarded? Did he get scolded instead? "Your Highness, what's wrong?" Wang Xi was a little worried too. Prince Ting shook his head lightly and glanced outside. Wang Xi immediately understood what he meant. This was the palace. It wasn't the place to talk. Prince Ting sat long enough for a cup of tea, then led Wang Xi and Li Yu out of the palace. It wasn't until they were back at the manor that Wang Xi and Li Yu found out that not only did the emperor not reward Prince Ting, he ordered Prince Ting to go live on the western border for a while. Or, in other words, the emperor's reward for Prince Ting was for him to leave the city. How could that be? Li Yu didn't understand it. The emperor was clearly very happy when he saw the longevity made of fish, and he even mentioned hanging Tang Ying's painting up in Tianqing Palace. Why had he suddenly gotten mad at Prince Ting? He couldn't find anything wrong. Was there a problem with his fish arrangement? Was it that he shouldn't have gone the extra mile to give the emperor the lotus? But if he hadn't, and the fish had just scattered, the emperor would have been upset. Sob, it was too hard to guess at an emperor's thoughts as a fish. Li Yu was self-reflecting. Wang Xi also thought it was unfair. After he voiced a few complaints, Prince Ting ordered him to leave. Once Wang Gongong had left, the more Li Yu thought about it, the more he thought it was his fault. He could no longer stomach any more fish feed or pastries, and he couldn't help replaying all the details of the banquet in his head. He just didn't understand. While he was blaming himself, Li Yu saw Prince Ting had left a little lamp on by the window and was sitting there. The dark night made his young, handsome face seem slightly hazy. It was already dark. He'd had such an exhausting day, but Prince Ting wasn't resting. Perhaps, just like Li Yu, he couldn't figure it out and couldn't fall asleep. He couldn't continue like this. Li Yu shook his head and turned into a human where Prince Ting couldn't see. He walked to the window and called out apologetically, "Your Highness." Prince Ting looked up at him, eyes full of smiles, and waved at him. Li Yu suddenly realized Prince Ting was there because he was waiting for him, not because he was upset about today. "Your Highness, I'm sorry. I tried my best. I don't know why things ended up like this." Li Yu mumbled an explanation, feeling very sorry for himself. Didn't all the novels say that fighting for the throne meant making the emperor happy? Why was it that he made the emperor happy, but it only backfired? Did the emperor suspect Prince Ting because he tried to get his favor? Why couldn't Li Yu share some of his luck in specific, slightly weird places with Prince Ting? Prince Ting saw that he'd misunderstood and shook his head. He patted Li Yu's hand, then pointed at the painting on the wall. Li Yu tried to guess for a while before he understood what Prince Ting meant. Prince Ting was saying it wasn't Li Yu's fault. Prince Ting had given a painting as well, after all. Li Yu sniffled and said uncertainly, "You don't blame me, Your Highness?" Prince Ting shook his head again, holding Li Yu's hands tighter. It was hard to say what he wanted through a few brief actions. Prince Ting kissed Li Yu on the lips, then put him on his lap. Li Yu was shocked. Prince Ting wanted to do that now? Unless he was afraid he wasn't coming back anymore, so he had to eat his fill? Just like how he'd suddenly went to Changchun Palace? Was he afraid he wouldn't be able to pay his respects anymore? Li Yu's heart was aching. Either way, the fish had nothing to give but himself. It wasn't a big deal to let Prince Ting have some fun. He stilled himself, wrapping his arms around Prince Ting's neck. Prince Ting paused a little at Li Yu's sudden initiative, then laughed like something had just occurred to him. He pushed Li Yu away from him slightly, held Li Yu's hand, and spread out a sheet of paper. Li Yu suddenly went bright red. So he didn't want to eat him. He wanted to write. Prince Ting wrote with his hand over Li Yu's. "You've worked hard. You're very good. Don't worry. Father isn't mad at me." Really? Li Yu didn't quite believe him. Then why does the emperor want Your Highness to leave? In the book, the western border was a desolate, dangerous place, and quite poor. There was no way the emperor wanted Prince Ting to go on vacation there, right? "Father hasn't taken away my title yet." Prince Ting wrote down roughly, hinting at something. Li Yu mulled the words over in his head. His eyes brightened. "Hasn't taken away my title yet." What did that mean? The emperor was thoroughly disappointed with the second prince, not even leaving him the title of prince, only calling him the Marquis of An. None of the other princes were given proper titles either. Prince Ting's title was given to him out of regret and reassurance. If the emperor was really angry and sent Prince Ting away in a fit of rage, he wouldn't let him keep his title. So, the emperor ordered you to go to the western border not as punishment, but as... Li Yu was just about to say it when Prince Ting put a finger on his lips hurriedly and shushed him. The emperor hadn't said anything. He just told him to go to the western border. He'd receive more specific instructions when he got there. Prince Ting himself didn't get it either. He'd just inferred this from the fact that the emperor still asked Luo Ruisheng to see him out. He felt like he had the right idea, but he couldn't say it out loud. If the emperor wanted him to go to the border, he had no choice but to go. Li Yu covered his mouth cooperatively, but his heart immediately started to jump. Since ancient times, if a father was kicking his son out not for punishment, then it was to test him. But why did the emperor want to test Prince Ting? It must be because he had new hopes for him. In the past, the emperor rarely interfered with Prince Ting's life because he didn't expect much from him, so he didn't care what Prince Ting did. So now, he was hopeful. Going to the western border might not be a bad thing. Now that he'd figured it out, Li Yu's dismay turned to joy. "Your Highness, when are you leaving?" Prince Ting wrote, "Soon, in a few days. You stay here. Wangxi will take care of you." Though Prince Ting was fairly confident he'd figured out what the emperor was thinking, the western border was a desperate place. He didn't want Xiao Yu to come with him. Besides, he was afraid the trip would be too much for Xiao Yu, so he wanted him to stay in the city. He hadn't pampered Xiao Yu enough yet. How could he let Xiao Yu go through such hardship with him? Li Yu couldn't believe he was going to be left behind. Holy shit! If Prince Ting was going to the western border, didn't that mean they were about to go through thick and thin? "No, Your Highness," he declared loudly. "I'll go where you go. If you're going, we're going together." Chapter 76. Fake Fishy Pregnancy. Li Yu wasn't afraid of hard times. He'd been prepared to go through thick and thin with Prince Ting for a long time. Since he'd transmigrated, apart from the very beginning when he'd nearly been eaten by that cat, he'd been taken care of by Prince Ting. So what if he had to follow Prince Ting to a desolate place? He didn't have a home in this time period. It was Prince Ting who gave him somewhere to stay. Li Yu thought of a very touching line. To me, he said, smiling, "Home is wherever your Highness is." Prince Ting didn't expect him to say something like that. He touched Li Yu's cheek tenderly, his eyes flickering with emotion. Li Yu thought Prince Ting would feel touched and allowed him to go to the western border with him. That way, he could complete the Through Thick and Thin quest that he'd nearly forgotten about. But though Prince Ting was touched, he still refused. This was way too hard. He couldn't convince Prince Ting even with such beautiful language. He couldn't always use his body every single time. Oh, he got it. Li Yu suddenly had an idea. His man was someone with a sense of responsibility. Li Yu sniffled. "Your Highness, I'm already with your child. You're still going to leave me here alone?" No matter how resolute Prince Ting had been before, he was now thoroughly shocked by Li Yu's words. Looking at the person in his arms pretending to be demure, Prince Ting thought his soul was floating away. If he remembered correctly, he and Xiao Yu had not made it to the last step. Besides, Xiao Yu was male. If this were any other occasion, he'd just laugh. How could men get pregnant? But the problem was that Prince Ting knew Xiao Yu was not human. He was a carp spirit. Perhaps carp spirits were just different, and a male fish could get pregnant? Prince Ting wanted to believe Li Yu. If Xiao Yu said he was, then he was. But Xiao Yu was a fish. He was a human. So, was he pregnant with a fish or a human? A human would be easier. If it were a fish... Prince Ting placed his palm carefully on Li Yu's belly. No matter what, that was his child in there. He wouldn't deny it. Li Yu had just been joking. Even though they'd never gone all the way, he'd done everything else, so they'd been quite intimate already. He refused to let Prince Ting leave him here, but he didn't think Prince Ting would take his joke seriously and touch his belly. Li Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who would believe such nonsense? But Prince Ting did. If this misunderstanding continued, Prince Ting might even pick a name. Li Yu hurriedly apologized. "Your Highness, I'm sorry, I was lying. I'm not pregnant. I was just kidding." There was only fish feed and pastries in the fish's belly. No babies. Prince Ting looked up, gaze lost. "You're not?" Li Yu's heart ached at the emotion in his eyes, and he hugged him tightly. "Your Highness, I'm a man. How could I? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have joked about something like that. I just want to be together with you. I don't want to be apart from you for even a second. Please don't be mad at me. It was a joke? Prince Sting smiled helplessly. If he didn't let the fish come with him, he'd pretend to be pregnant? He really didn't know what to do with this fish. Although he'd gotten his hopes up for nothing, Prince Sting wasn't angry. He patted the top of Li Yu's head. Oh well, the situation in the capital was complex. If he left Xiao Yu behind by himself, he wouldn't be able to take care of him so far away at the western border. Besides, if Xiao Yu didn't mind going with him, what did he have to worry about? Prince Sting stopped rejecting Li Yu, but he didn't nod either. Despite that, Li Yu knew he had succeeded because the system, which had been silent the last few days, gave him a new notification. The main quest, through thick and thin, is in progress. Please beware of your safety. It seemed like he was on the right track with going to the western border. He probably had to go there to complete the main quest. Because of the notification, Li Yu remembered the protagonist halo the system had mentioned in the past. These last few days, he'd been too busy worrying about Prince Sting, and he'd forgotten that Prince Sting would definitely ascend to the throne one day. Your Highness, no matter how dangerous it gets or how many obstacles stand in our future, don't worry. Li Yu chuckled, very confident. You will definitely achieve what you want, and I'll stay with you every step of the way. Prince Sting looked at him deeply, nodded, and pulled the fish that had changed his entire life into his arms. In Tianqing Palace, the emperor, dressed in bright yellow robes embroidered with dragons, stared at the crane and peach painting on the wall expressionlessly. He was thinking about something. After a while, he looked up at the person beside him. How is he? Head eunuch Luo had always been at the emperor's side, so of course he knew who the emperor was speaking of. Prince Sting seemed calm and went to Changchun Palace, he replied. He paid his respects to the empress with 3 sticks of incense, then went home. The servant heard Prince Sting's manner has already started packing up the prince's belongings. The emperor nodded, happy with Prince Sting's attitude. This son of his had never traveled far from home, and the emperor was worried about his safety. He told Luo Ruisheng, "Send 2 troops to follow him and secretly protect him." Luo Ruisheng agreed. The emperor stared at head eunuch Luo for a while, then said, "Do you think I'm being too harsh, sending him to the western border despite being the happiest with his gift?" That was exactly what Luo Ruisheng was thinking, but there was no way he'd be brave enough to admit it. He said hurriedly, "This servant doesn't dare have an opinion on the emperor's decision. You must have your reasons. This servant just has to do as you say." "Good," the emperor said. So what if other people misunderstood his intentions? He didn't care. He liked Prince Sting's gift the most, and because of this gift, the emperor saw a bit of Prince Sting's ambition. After all, Prince Sting had given him his own calligraphy for many years now. He'd always been slightly cold toward the emperor. It was like an unspoken agreement between the two of them. But now, suddenly, Prince Sting was trying to appeal to the emperor. What did that mean? The emperor didn't even need to think about it. After all, this was something he had gone through himself. How could he not understand that Prince Sting was starting to make a bid for the throne? The emperor hadn't chosen a crown prince for a long time. It was only expected for his adult princes to have such thoughts. The emperor was at least aware of that much. If the second and third prince hadn't made mistakes, he had been willing to give them the chance. But this was Prince Sting. Aside from being surprised, the emperor felt a bit of sadness and bitterness. In terms of status, no one deserved it more than Prince Sting. But because of his muteness, Prince Sting had lost his chance long ago. He always thought Prince Sting had accepted his fate. But now, it seemed he hadn't. Didn't this brat know he couldn't choose a mute prince to be the crown prince? Why was he still fighting? If this were before, the emperor would have thought this was a huge joke. But during his birthday banquet, the emperor realized the second prince had gone mad and the third prince was still colluding with officials while he was on house arrest. They'd both crossed the line. The only adult prince he could consider was the sixth prince. Though the emperor said he wasn't planning on picking a crown prince for now and wanted to see how the seventh and eighth princes fared in the future, they were still too young. It was hard to say what the future would hold. If the sixth prince wasn't suitable, then would he not consider Prince Sing at all? Prince Sing was mute, but compared to the idea of having no sons to choose from at all, that problem no longer seemed so important. As for his children, though the imperial physician said it was very possible Prince Sing would pass his muteness on to his children, it wasn't certain. It was still possible for Prince Sing to have children without that disability. The emperor thought silently. He had 8 sons, and only one of them was mute. If it came down to it, if Prince Sing had 8 sons, at least one of them would not be mute, right? And so, Prince Sing wasn't completely out of the question. If he took the muteness out of the equation, Prince Sing certainly didn't lose to the 6th prince, or even the 2nd prince from before. Now that he'd thought this all through, the emperor was a little excited. He wanted to see exactly how far Prince Sing could go, but he had to do better than simply not losing to the other princes. If he was going to pick a mute son to be the crown prince, the son had to have other qualities that elevated him above the competition. The western border was messy with battles and constantly plagued with disasters. The emperor had always wanted to test the future crown prince there. Well, there wasn't a crown prince now. If Prince Sing wanted to fight for the throne, then Prince Sing could go. If he hit a wall, he could give up and live his life peacefully. But if Prince Sing managed to solve such a mess... Your Highness, Prince Sing has already set out, Xue Shan said quietly. The emperor was deep in thought and didn't answer. Xue Shan thought he'd spoken too quietly and repeated himself. The emperor jolted out of his thoughts and ordered Xue Shan to find the 6th prince. He had a job for him too. If one of the princes was able to control the western border, he'd consider making them the crown prince. If Prince Sing could do it, he would be considered as well. Prince Sing had already agreed to bring Li Yu along with him. The guards, carriage, and luggage were all ready. He'd even prepared 10 crystal bottles. Fish food and fish tanks took up several carts. He said it would be a tough time, but no matter what, Prince Sing wasn't going to let his fish starve. With all of this prepared, Li Gongzi was still quite anxious and on edge. This time, he wasn't just going shopping with Prince Sing or going to buy antiques, where he could maintain his human form just long enough. Prince Sing had calculated this trip. If they were quick, it'd take nearly a month. If they traveled at a normal pace, it'd take them around 2.5 months. For most of that time, Li Yu would have to be crammed into the carriage, eating and sleeping in the same space as Prince Sing, squeezing together in the carriage, living and eating together. He could do all of those things as a fish, but he couldn't as a human. He could only maintain his human form for 2 hours a day. If he was going to be stuck with Prince Sing, how was he going to transform? Even if he managed to figure out how to transform, how was Li Gongzi going to suddenly vanish every day? When they were on the road, they were going to be surrounded by guards. If Li Gongzi really were to leave, he'd be spotted by them. But in reality, Li Gongzi was only pretending to leave. There was no way he could actually leave. As soon as that was found out, Li Yu's disguise would be revealed. So, the only way was to try to stay as a fish for as long as possible on the journey and only interact with Prince Sing as a fish. But Li Yu, the dumbass, didn't think things through when he was faced with the possibility of completing his quest. So, he asked Prince Sing to take him along as a human. He was overly confident, shooting himself in the foot. Li Yu was so anxious. He'd asked for it himself, so he couldn't suddenly change his mind at the last moment. Prince Sing was definitely bringing Li Gongzi on this trip. He was definitely going to be living with Li Gongzi every day, taking bites out of Li Gongzi. That meant revealing his identity was an inevitability for Li Gongzi. Sob. Li Yu wasn't able to find a solution, right up to the moment they were about to leave. Wang Xi prepared the carriage and helped Li Yu into it. Li Yu climbed into the carriage holding the crystal bottle, his heart heavy with worry, and nearly stumbled over his own feet. It was a good thing Prince Sing was quick enough to steady him. Prince Sing was about to get in the carriage as well, and Li Yu couldn't have been more nervous if he was seeing a countdown to his demise. Soon, Prince Sing entered the carriage too and looked at Li Yu, confirming there was nothing wrong. Li Yu couldn't hide what he was feeling. Prince Sing smiled at the way he was trembling, then left. What? Prince Sing didn't get into the carriage again, only following along beside the carriage on his horse. Li Yu was confused. Was Prince Ding not going to get in? He lifted a corner of the curtain, wanting to ask someone, when he saw Wang Xi just outside. Wang Gongong, what's going on? Wang Xi was going to the western border too. Wang Gongong wasn't getting into the carriage either. He was riding on a donkey on the other side. When he saw Li Yu peeking out, he hurried to ask him to sit down. Gongsa, sit properly. He tried not to laugh. His Highness was afraid it'd be too cramped for you since you're pregnant now. That carriage is for you alone. Please get some rest and take care of Master Fish. If you need anything, just call for me. This old servant is right outside. Wang Xi said all that, but he was laughing on the inside the entire time. How could a man get pregnant? This must be part of the Gongsa and Prince Ding's relationship, and Wang Gongong was happy to play along. Li Yu glared at Prince Ding for a while. Prince Ding returned the gaze, smiling. Why was this smile so offensive to his eyes? The huge asshole strikes again. To be honest, Prince Ding really did take care of him. Was he worried Li Yu would get bored and claustrophobic with an extra person in the carriage? Well, his identity certainly wouldn't be revealed if he had this carriage all by himself. The only way for Li Gongzi not to be discovered was to pretend to be pregnant. All right, you guys. That is the end of Volume 2 of the Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. So I just have a couple of thoughts, and then we're going to go ahead and, tune out for the day, sign out for the day, whatever. So the first thing that I want to say is, oh my God, this last chapter. First off, why the Prince Ding was too readily agreeable to, or too readily convinced about Li Yu being pregnant. Like, you weren't supposed to respond that way, thinking that he really was. Like, I get it. You know that he's a carp spirit, or you think he's a carp spirit, and Li Yu doesn't know that. And so you're thinking, well, since he's a carp spirit, it's possible for him to get pregnant, blah, 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 blah. But considering that it's still Li Yu trying to hide his identity, and you know he's trying to do that, I feel like Prince Ding shouldn't have readily just been like, oh yeah, you're pregnant. Oh wow, that's so great. Touching his belly, basically. Like, what? It makes absolutely no sense. Nevertheless, yeah, that was very ridiculous. Part of me feels like it was laughable, haha, funny. And then the other part of me was just like, that was just really weird and really awkward. Anyway, going on to the next bit, I'm interested to see what's going to take place on the western borders. Wanted to see if some like big thing is going to happen, and if it is, what the heck is it? Is it going to happen there, or are we still going to have to wait for it to happen for when he gets back? Nevertheless, I'm really hoping that something big happens in the third volume. I know that there's a whole nother volume after that, but I kind of need some kind of conflict to come up, or something to arise that gives a little bit of like, oh God, what's going to happen next? I'm just kind of ready for that. And I think I've said it before in a previous video, but I really, really like angst. And I can read slice of life type things and, everyday type things or regular stuff. But at the end of the day, especially when it comes to things that involve some kind of political intrigue, I need a little something to keep me going. So I'm kind of just, waiting for the big ball to drop or whatever. Now, another thing I want to mention is the Sixth Prince. My guy, you thinking about ruining the gift, with the koi in the pond. I just think that is so cruel. Like, at this point, you're not even thinking about your father and actually wanting to celebrate his birthday for real. You're only thinking about wanting to advance yourself. And yeah, you played the whole sympathy card with, I don't have a lot of money, so I made this thing for you. And I do think that that's lovely. I am the queen of handmade gifts. At least I used to be. So I did think that that was very innovative, very nice. But you trying to destroy a gift that was presented to your father, to me, is just absolutely ridiculous and so cruel. And I'm glad that Li Yu was prepared for it. Because just like, what? Also, speaking of the emperor, I do want to say that I'm so happy that he's now considering Prince Sing to possibly be the crown prince because, yeah, at the end of the day, just because he's mute doesn't mean he can't accomplish things. And so I think it's nice that he's finally thinking about that and like, okay, you know what? And it's possible that he can have children that won't be mute. Okay, because most of the time emperors have lots of freaking children. So at least one of them has to not be mute, right? But probably more than one of them won't be mute. And so it's just nice to see that, he's more open. And like I said before, I definitely understand why he was a little closed off to the idea before. So anyway, I feel like I've said this before, probably for Thousand Autumns and or maybe Stars of Chaos. I don't know. I'm gonna try not to say it all the time. But one thing I did not like, even though I definitely understand, is the Emperor truly showing his biggest delight with Prince Sing's gift. And the reason I say I did not like that is because all of his sons presented him with a gift. Well, let's forget about Mutian, whatever his name was, I forgot, the second prince. Let's forget about him. But all your sons presented you with a gift. And I feel like even though you probably can't necessarily show the same level of enthusiasm because some things just might touch your heart more, you should have at least tried to show the same level of enthusiasm. And let's be real, a lot of times emperors are definitely showing who they favor the most out of all of their sons. And I believe that that definitely plays a part in how princes interact with each other. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are princes who, they want to be the ones to take the throne next. So there are just naturally going to be problems, especially when their mothers are instigating those things. But it causes even more strife when the parent, the emperor, is showing favor to one more than the other. I just feel like it wouldn't be as bad if he showed equal favor to all of them, And at the end of the day, like the Sixth Prince had said, I think in the last video, the videos before, whatever, his challenge to the throne was not the second prince and it was not the third prince. And even though the sentence didn't finish, right after that, it went to the next paragraph and it said Prince Sing, blah, 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 blah. His biggest threat for the throne is Prince Sing. Why? Because the emperor has shown him favor, whether people realize it or not, because, they're not close, which I am glad they had their moment at the wedding. But he has always been looking out for Prince Sing and showing favor upon him in different ways, especially as of late since, Li Yu entered the picture. And so, yeah, I lost my train of thought. I'm not even gonna lie. The point is, I just wonder how things would be different if there was actually an emperor out there that treated all the sons favorably. Just a thought. And the last thing that I want to mention is about the third prince. If there is a prince that I believe is the stupidest among them all, not counting the seventh and eighth because they're so young and we don't hear much about them, I'm gonna say it's the third prince. Like, my guy, you not understanding the sentimental value of the Sixth Prince's gift shows how much of a dumbass you are. Because come on, everyone knows that when someone hand makes you a gift from the bottom of their heart, it's just so... It's so touching, instead of just finding the cheapest thing you can find and be like, this is all I could afford, or even, trying to spend all of the money you don't have to get something really lavish, but making something, it hits different, So him not being able to see the uniqueness in that, it's just like, okay, guy, you're really dumb. But not only that, you brought a gift that was inappropriate. And your father just decided not to say anything in the moment because it was his birthday celebration. He ain't trying to ruin the mood, but your gift was not fit for the occasion. So those are all of my thoughts. My throat is a little dry now. I will be taking the day off and I'll see you guys when I see you guys. I'm not sure. I may take a day or two break before we get into Volume 3, especially since I know that Volume 4 is being released on the 25th. I've already pre-ordered the special edition, so we'll see if it comes in on the 25th or if it comes, like a day or two later. So I feel like I can take my time with Volume 3. So I hope you all enjoyed this. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And, well, 爱你们.